I have to play video camera women.
Is this Ustream?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
let's take a look. Hello, this is Governor Wildstar. How you guys doing? I'm here at the Young Americans for Liberty convention at Cal State Fullerton. We're about to go in and enjoy ourselves, see what this is all about, see if we can do some networking with the young libertarians of America. Hello. And see if we can spread our name around about the campaign a little bit, get them excited about me running for governor of California. So let's go in. So this is more
Sometimes the message you have to deliver to certain people will cause nuances. And some folks are not going to be able to hear your message no matter how rational, no matter how effectively presented it may be. So I want to go into talking about what Randy was talking about, building upon that notion that there are a lot of low-hanging fruit that needs to be going after. Folks that maybe don't consider themselves right now part of the liberty movement, if we can find an issue that activates them, brings them into our movement, and get them involved. And as Brandon was using, a great term for these folks would be the persuadables. And this works across the political spectrum. It can work on other issues. It can work in business. These are folks who maybe haven't been asked for their involvement in anything particular recently. There are folks who, and this applies especially to your campuses, because you're going to hear the conventional wisdom. And I've got Guy Fawkes back here. What's going on? You're going to blow the place up?
for liberty. No, sir.
So, where was I? So uh,
I know. Why
you
would
know,
he
when
think
you're on
I'm a
campus,
terrorist?
there's a lot of times you sit there and say, man, this is, unless you go to Hillsdale or BYU, as one of us does here, unless you go to those campuses, there's the typical notion that campuses tend to be liberal. But what I want to implore for you to really consider, especially because you're trying to reach out to people and persuade them, yeah, it might be true that the establishment institutions on your campus may be liberal, if you want to use that word and give them that credit. The administration may be, much of the faculty may be, the student government may be, but the vast majority of people that you're going to run into as Young Americans for Liberty chapters, leaders, and activists are folks who are apathetic, who don't have an investment currently in the system. And these are folks that we can reach and we can talk about our issues and find that issue that activates them, gives them a personal investment, gets them involved in our movement. And as John Tate was saying before, we can then use that as a way to bring them along through the educational programs we offer, through the activism we offer, and get them involved. Now, this is some of the people who are not persuadable. It's not across the. It's pretty funny to get this in here. They're prepared for you, but um, folks who we can't persuade as effectively, and this isn't a law, but this is a general guideline in thinking. Folks who arrive at their policy positions because of their emotional reaction and investment in policy positions, rather than how they logically put the reason and conclude that that's the best policy. And this may be applicable to some of you as well, because this is a kind of characteristic that runs across the political spectrum. There may be people like this lady up here who is really into enviro-green stuff and believes that central economic planning is the answer to a green and healthy planet, and government should spend all of the domestic spending on these programs. And what ultimately is her conclusion for why this is good? Not necessarily because she's read some great policy papers that say that it's going to be effective, but because of the emotional need it fulfills for her to advocate and believe that policy. It makes her feel fulfilled that we're going to have a greener planet, a more harmonious balance with nature and humanity and all of that jazz. And that's her investment. It's an emotional investment. So, too, you could have somebody who's a straight-up neocon. They don't care about the facts or the figures or what you have to say about blowback or what you have to say about the history of the Iranian coup or whatever. They just feel that if we spend all of this money on international programs, we're going to be the toughest, we're going to be the strongest, nobody's going to dare mess with us, and it doesn't matter, deficits don't matter, national debt doesn't matter, because this is what makes me feel fulfilled emotionally, that my country and my military is strong. So those are the people who are going to be pretty hard to convince. Now, I don't mean to discount emotion when I'm saying this, because emotion is a very effective tool. Emotion helps us motivate people. It's a good rhetorical tool to get people considering how this issue might affect them. And then we can use reason to persuade them and bring them along to hear the show that differentiation for who's persuadable and who's not. Okay, before we get into political language and messaging, let's use an example from our daily lives. I've lived in the North, I've lived in the South, I now live in the West, and different places in the country, folks have different names for carbonated beverages. Can we take a poll real quick? We grew up calling soda, mostly, because I think most of you in this part of the country. Anybody pop? Anybody say, there you go, you got some pop. You're from Wisconsin there, you got pop there, Jeff. I grew up, my family is, I've lived all over, as I said, but my parents are from the Detroit area originally. And pop is what they say in Michigan. They say it, I think, in a lot of places in Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, some parts of New York State. In Ontario, Canada, you'll hear pop, and I guess in the Midwest, other parts of those areas too. So, but when I moved to North Carolina, if I went down and said, yeah, give me a pop, they'd say, what the heck is a pop? What are you smoking, man? So the language you use when relating to other people, frankly, whether they'll even be familiar with the term, which with us libertarians is a problem, because we're trying to engage with other people in our lexicon that we want everybody else to understand that maybe other people haven't heard. So there's the understanding part of it, but it's also their own interpretation of what that language is and how they make a personal connection to it. So whether you say soda, pop, soft drink, and Coke in regular life, it says some things about who you are, where you come from, who can relate to you, and it has the same to do with political language as well. So let's say I'm trying to reach out to some persuadables at the Tea Party meeting, and I want to go and talk to them about my top issue, foreign policy. And so I want to go and use a word with them, which I think pretty much everybody in this room probably understands the implications of and the ins and outs of it pretty well. Non-interventionist foreign policy. I'm sure you've used it in your language and in the right audience among us. I think we're all friends. We can probably deal with this. But you know what they're thinking when you use a word like non-interventionist foreign policy? Pacifist wuss would idly stand by watching his mother getting gangbanged. I know that's what you're thinking. So why would you hamstring yourself? We don't have, look, listen, we're an organization committed to winning on principle. But just because we want to win on principle doesn't mean that we have to hamstring ourselves by not communicating our principles effectively to the audience we're talking to. So let's say we do want to talk about how we can bring a Tea Party vision of foreign policy and fiscal responsibility to this audience so that we can, these folks need our help. These are folks who want to get involved with young people. They want to channel their frustration with what's going on in the country. And we have the opportunity to present a program to them that can be very effective with our shared beliefs and our shared values. And if we can find a way to communicate this vision that connects their concerns to ours without offending them, without, most of all, scaring them, we can win a lot of support. So what if, yes, I'm going to use the word compromise, but you're not making a compromise of principle. You're making a compromise of the way you communicate your message here. We go in and we say, you know what? The biggest threat to our national security is the fact that we're broke. We're over $16 trillion in debt and climbing every day. We're borrowing from the Red Chinese under the assumption that we're using that money to defend ourselves from the Red Chinese. How's that working out? We think if we're going to be the most powerful nation on the face of the earth, we have to shore up our economic system. It means we've got to cut spending, wasteful spending, wherever we find it, across the government. I invite everybody in the Tea Party to join me to do that. That's something you can build some common ground on because you hit some of the features, not only emotionally, but rationally, that audience really cares about. And instead of coming out with the negative impression that you don't share their values, they can say, hey, this person cares about a lot of the same things that I do. Maybe I should come to their next event, or maybe I should get involved in their activities. So the use of language makes a big difference in the way people perceive it. Moving away from, just for a minute, talking to people maybe you're not so familiar with, because I know we all like to think we're the best at converting people and bringing people around, but in your own experience, even in your own families, in your own household, do you really have everybody converted to the cause of liberty? And I'm not saying you have to. You have everybody. You have a very small family, don't you? You can't even find somebody to get married to in this world that you're going to agree with on every issue. And so it's tough to do. And I use this, when you're using language, use the grandma test. If you're at Thanksgiving dinner or you're at a family reunion, I know you because I'm weird like the rest of you. I'm waiting for somebody to bring up something quasi-political or economic so I can get my words in there. And I'm waiting for some older relative to complain about something that the government is doing that's an overstretch so that I say grandma says something like, I'm tired of the government trying to take all our light bulbs away. I had to put in all those funny, screwy light bulbs, and they don't work for a damn. I know you're feeling like you got to get out there and make some profound statement that's going to bring grandma to the cause of anarcho-capitalism. Well, be careful in the words you choose when you're trying to reach people. I know we want to be profound, and I use a profound statement here by James Madison, the father of the Constitution. And to be honest with you, though it is a profound statement, I couldn't even get it out to you unless I had it written in front of me right here. There are more instances of the abridgment of freedom by gradual and silent encroachments by those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. What do you think? I know this makes us happy. We can put this on our Facebook status. We feel like good patriots. But what do you think if Grandma says that she's mad about the light bulbs and you say, Grandma, you're right. There are more instances of the abridgment of freedom by gradual and sudden encroachments by those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. Yeah, and you're going to get smacked. That's what's going to happen. So I'm going to talk again about some compromise. And this is where people are going to say, uh-oh, L.I. Weinberg guy's coming in here teaching us how to be neocons and quote Ronald Reagan. Yes, there are some good things that you can find from our 40th President of the United States. And I want to tell you something, especially reaching out to the older generation. This is a guy who won 49 states in 1984, ran on a platform shockingly similar to a lot of the things that we're running on in our organizations all the time. And not only did he reach party Republicans, doctrinaire conservatives, and libertarians, as a guy with family from the Detroit area, I can tell you there's a whole generation of people who went by the title Reagan Democrats. And they were able to be reached by a limited government conservative because they felt that he had a better idea about the role of government, economics, and a whole host of issues than the Democrats of that age did. Now, we might be in a different era where Democrats have won back a lot of those folks, but there's still something to be said for the simplicity of this language that packages all of the same ideas that you wanted to communicate to Grandma and say, yeah, it's getting totally out of control, Grandma. Just like Ronald Reagan says, as the government expands, liberty contracts. I think we got to do something because if they keep taking away the light bulbs, you never know what's going to be next. Before you know it, we're going to look back, and this country's not going to be as free as it used to be. It's a lot easier, right, to package something that's simple for people to comprehend. The other thing you got to keep in mind when you're communicating your message, when you're deciding what your audience is, you have to be thinking about these questions because these are on their mind. Ben said here, I was talking about light bulbs. So you have to keep in mind, what is their interest? What is their stake in the issue? They're always going to ask, why should I care? Or what does this have to do with me? And I know you have your motivation in the issue, and you light up when somebody's complaining about the overstretches of government, and you think there's some grand ideological premise behind it. But sometimes they're just talking about light bulbs, and you got to work from there. Okay, so to work out, just like John Tate was talking about before, when we're talking about the audit the Fed issue, there's 80% of America that gets the audit the Fed issue. Work with them on the audit the Fed issue, and then you can bring them in on the other topics, which are maybe more ideological in nature. Now, I'm going to use Professor Einstein a couple times today. Actually, he advocated socialism, but he knew a lot about authoritarianism. He escaped Nazi Germany, and is an overall great human being and a very interesting fellow. And of course, we all know his formula, E equals MC squared. I'm going to convert this a little bit, and we're going to say this is the great formula for effective messaging. And my formula is M equals ECQ. That is message equals emotion, contrast, connection. And I love that Dr. Paul said something about this earlier today. Credibility. He said we must be credible messengers for the ideas of liberty, is more or less what he said. I said, thank you, Dr. Paul. There's always a lot of truth there. Okay, so I'm going to break this down and talk about these various pieces of this formula. Does everybody who wants this, I know not everybody's got a notebook in front of them, but you want to take it down, snap a picture. I'd be happy to show it to you later if you need to, but I'd encourage you to take this down because I think it'll be really helpful when you guys as a club or on campaigns are crafting this message, or any message. Okay, so emotion. The messages have to connect with people, voters, if you will, if you're working on a campaign, on an emotional value that's important to them. We persuade through reason, remember, but we motivate people through emotion. And before we get into the political implications of this, let's just think about something that we encounter every day and I say manipulate or exploit in the best of terms, but what do we get manipulated, besides our spouses and significant others, what are we manipulated by every day? Ads, advertising, yes. And in business, you hear about terms like features and benefits. And just for anybody who's maybe not familiar with the way they're used in marketing, features are basic, cold, calculated, determined things about a product or a service. So AT&T having more towers is a feature. Your car having a V8 engine or a tow capacity is a feature. Um, you know, one burger being bigger than the other, I guess, would be a feature, right? And those are all things that they are. But what they're really trying to sell to you is the emotional attachment that you have to that product or service. That's what's going to motivate you to actually get up off the couch or go to the store or whatever it is so that they can make the sale, right? So the emotional attachment would be not that I like that AT&T has more towers. That's water cooler talk. It would be that wherever I am in the country, wherever my kids or my family are, I know that they can pick up the phone and call me, and I'm going to have the certainty that we can get in touch. Or, I like that V8 engine because when I get onto the on-ramp on the freeway, I feel like the king. Nobody's getting in front of me, right? So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to sell also in our message, is an emotional connection to why people should favor our candidates, our policies, our organizations. And here's another, just like we motivate people, here's another reason and another application to it. Just like the companies want to motivate you to go out and buy the product, we want to motivate people to go out and take action on issues, and it's not always in a positive manner. We have to find a way to make people want to take back their country, or reverse a policy, or throw a bad person out of office. And so much more than inspirational motivations and emotions, although those can be useful in extraordinary circumstances, moral outrage, anger, can be the most powerful and is the most powerful motivating force in politics. And this is the word of Morton Blackwell, my boss, totally legit guy. Please look him up. This is one of his 45 laws of the public policy process. I promise you it is not just a vague, undetermined promise that these are laws. They function that way both in the public policy process. If you learn them well enough, you live long enough, and you learn them all, you'll see that they apply to life in many ways as well. It's a great list. Go to leadershipinstitute.org. You can, in fact, if you want, I can probably even have a framed copy sent to you because I have one over my desk. I know a lot of LI grads do too. Moral outrage is the most powerful motivating force in politics. And you know, a lot of the political technology and strategy that we teach at the Leadership Institute, although we are a conservative organization, is actually philosophically neutral. And I think if you really care about your ideas, if you want to learn how to be effective for them, then you want to know how to win. And some of the best ideas on how to win, unfortunately, are not going to come from your fellow sign wavers. They're going to come from people who have built effective, globally scaled movements, like communists, Marxists, leftists. These people have known how to win, and how to infiltrate other movements, how to get people emotionally invested in their ideas. And so, somebody who teaches this idea quite well is Saul Alinsky. Everybody know him? Author of Rules for Radicals, and wonderful, you got a copy right there. It always bothered me when Gingrich said, oh, a Saul Alinsky radical. I wish we had some more Saul Alinsky radicals. This guy, maybe I didn't agree with his policies or his views on things, but he knew about organizing. And that's what we need more of. And he said that people bleed faster than institutions. Have you ever thought about it for a while when you hear appeals from other organizations, why they talk about Ben Bernanke, or why they talk about Nancy Pelosi, instead of just saying Congress or the Fed? Well, Congress, maybe everybody hates Congress, but Congress isn't up for a vote all at one time, right? Institutions itself don't fall down so easily as individuals who represent bad ideas or policies. So here's moral outrage. It's interesting because it's so powerful for such a small thing. Did you know when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, her office was budgeted $1,000 a month for fresh flowers? Now that's not a lot compared to $17 trillion in debt. We're almost there. It's $1,000. It's not $15 trillion in backdoor loans through the Fed. It's not bailouts. It's not the cost of our foreign policy. But you know what? To the average person, that's a lot of money. No offense to my lovely girlfriend, I don't think I've spent $1,000 on flowers ever, let alone in a month. That's a lot, right? And it shows why we have a problem in Washington, that this is considered normal. And you will probably have a lot more people who will say, I've had enough on something like these flowers, than somebody who's wanting to come to them and tell them about, and I find this to be a repugnant issue, but the secretive backdoor bailouts that the Fed was distributing to all sorts of banks and frankly companies that weren't even banks in the time of the bailouts. Okay, so that's emotion. That's the power that that has. I want to talk about contrast. That offers citizens a clear choice. But you got to be careful with this, because just because you offer a choice doesn't mean it's a choice that brings people back to you, to the values that you think people will find appealing about you, your candidate, your cause. So it has to lead people back to us and our values. And I'm going to talk about probably the ranking undefeated champion of not being able to connect back with people and their values. This guy did some things right, but overall, what I do want to say is, of course, we know about the infamous 47% comments, and ultimately, while it may have been true that he could have won with 53 and 47, the 3 or 4% of the people that he really needed to convince were more offended by the 47% comments than otherwise needed to be for him to be victorious. And here's a similar story. He had just wrapped up the needed delegates to become the nominee, and he wanted to do a fairly controlled rally in the state of Illinois that would excite supporters. It would look like everything was on track, and it was going to be really hardcore people, people who have donated. Uh, you know, uh, that way we get the best questions, the best television presence. And I want to say something, by the way. A lot of times people complain about how fake his campaign rallies and stuff look like that. Learn to make your campaign rallies as fake as that looks, and the average grandma at home will say, there are nice people who support this candidate who have weird permit signs on the stage. So I hope you learned some of those messaging things, because although the things that came out of his mouth were not very good, some of his consultants were fairly good on that side of it. So I do want to bring that in. Once again, political technology is philosophically neutral. But at this rally, though it was supposed to be a whole campaign operation, tightly controlled, one so-called progressive activist did find their way in, and she had prepared a question, and she came up for her question for Governor Romney, and she said, yes, I want to know why you will not provide me free contraceptive services. And his answer to her was, essentially, if you want free stuff, you'll vote for the other party.